This is my story. My name is Eva Thompson. I'm 26 years old. And if you're listening to this, you already know the kind of ache that comes when the people who are supposed to love you decide your worth is measured in dollars and zeros. I sat there at the long mahogany dining table, the same one we'd had since I was 7, the one with the faint scratch on the edge from when my brother accidentally dropped a steak knife during one of Dad's family meetings. The air smelled like rosemary and roasted chicken and that heavy, expensive red wine Mom only brings out when she's trying to prove something. My hands were under the table, twisting the napkin until the fabric burned my palms. 3 years. 3 years since they'd looked at me like I belonged in this house. 3 years since the words, "You're dead to us if you keep wasting your life," had been screamed across this exact room. My mother Diane was at the head of the table, her blonde hair perfectly blown out, pearls catching the light from the chandelier like little accusations. Dad Richard Thompson, senior partner at the biggest corporate law firm in Chicago suburbs, was carving the chicken with the kind of precision he used in courtrooms. My older brother Alex, 29, golden child, already a junior partner at the same firm, sat across from me smirking into his wine glass. And then there was me, Eva. The disappointment, the one who'd chosen silly little creative dreams over the six-figure path they'd mapped out since I was in diapers. "Eva, darling," Mom said, her voice all sugar and knives, "you really should have worn something nicer. That sweater looks worn." She smiled like it was a compliment. I felt my chest tighten. The sweater was the nicest thing I own now, soft gray cashmere I'd bought myself after my first big break, but they didn't know that. They didn't know anything anymore. I forced a laugh that tasted like ash. "It's comfortable, Mom. I like comfortable these days." Alex snorted. "Comfortable? That's code for broke, right? Still slumming it in that studio apartment in the city? God, Eva, when are you going to grow up? Dad and I were talking on the drive over. You could still come work reception at the firm. We'd even overlook the whole disownment thing if you apologized properly." The word disownment landed like a slap. I froze. My pulse hammered in my ears so loud I could barely hear the clink of silverware. Background music shifts, soft piano fades into low, tense strings that pull tighter with every breath. That's when it happened. My phone had been sitting face up on the chair beside me, half hidden under my coat. I checked my banking app in the car on the way here, old habit, just to make sure the latest transfer had cleared. I thought I'd closed it. I was wrong. The screen lit up with a notification I'd forgotten to silence. A low buzz, then another. Mom's eyes flicked toward it first. Then Alex, always the quickest to pounce, reached over and snatched the phone before I could stop him. "Who's texting you now? One of your starving artist boyfriends?" He laughed, holding it high like a trophy, but the laugh died in his throat. His thumb had brushed the screen. The banking app was still open. The numbers glowed under the chandelier light, crisp and undeniable. Balance, $2,487,392.14. Available, $2,487,392.14. The room went dead silent. You could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking like it was counting down to an explosion. Dad's knife stopped mid-carve. Mom's wine glass hovered halfway to her lips. Alex's face drained of color so fast he looked like he'd seen a ghost wearing my face. I froze. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. No, not like this. I'd planned this moment 100 times in my head, controlled on my terms, maybe with printed statements and a calm voice. Not like this. Not with my phone in my brother's hand and my family staring at the one secret I'd guarded with my life. "What the hell is this?" Dad's voice was low, dangerous, the same tone he used when he was about to destroy someone on the stand. He reached across the table and ripped the phone from Alex's grip. His eyes scanned the screen once, twice, like the numbers might rearrange themselves if he stared hard enough. "Eva, explain now." My mother's hand flew to her pearls. "That can't be right. That's almost $2.5 million. Eva, where did you get this? Did you do something illegal? Tell me you didn't steal this." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. The silence stretched so long it hurt. Camera close-up, feeling my face, eyes wide, lips parted like I was about to speak, but the words were stuck behind 3 years of pain. I swallowed hard. The room smelled suddenly too strong: wine, rosemary, betrayal. My breathing came shallow, like I was underwater. You all disowned me," I said, my voice cracking but steadying as I went on. "3 years ago, you sat me down right here at this table and told me I was no longer your daughter if I didn't drop my hobby and get a real job. You cut off my tuition money mid-semester. You told all your friends I was a failure. You changed the locks on my childhood bedroom while I was out looking for an apartment I could actually afford. And now you want me to explain my own money." Alex leaned back, arms crossed, but his face was pale. "This has to be fake, some kind of scam. Eva, you were broke. You were living on ramen and side gigs. I saw your Venmo requests, for God's sake." I laughed, then, a small, broken sound that surprised even me. "Yeah, I was, for a while. You made sure of that." That's when everything changed. But to really understand why my bank statement leaking at that dinner felt like the universe finally evening the score, I need to take you back, all the way back to the beginning. My name is Eva Thompson. Well, it used to feel like Thompson meant something in this house. I grew up in this exact suburban McMansion outside Chicago, the kind with the three-car garage and the perfectly manicured lawn that Dad paid a landscaping crew 5 figures a year to maintain. Mom sold luxury real estate to CEOs and athletes. Dad crushed corporate litigation. Alex was the heir apparent, straight A's, lacrosse captain, then law school on a full ride they didn't even need. And me. I was the creative one, the one who drew on napkins at family dinners and begged to take art classes instead of debate club. They tolerated it when I was little. She'll grow out of it, they'd say. College was when it cracked. I went to the University of Illinois on a partial scholarship, majoring in graphic design and digital media. I told them I wanted to build brands, create campaigns that actually meant something, maybe start my own studio one day. They laughed, literally laughed at the family Christmas dinner my sophomore year. Graphic design, Eva honey, that's what people do when they can't hack real careers, Mom had said, refilling her eggnog. Dad had slid a business card across the table, his firm's HR director. Internship starts next summer, no arguments. I argued anyway. I worked 2 jobs through college, waitressing at a campus cafe and freelancing logo designs on the side for 20 bucks a pop. I lived in a tiny off-campus apartment with a leaky ceiling and roommates who partied until 4 a.m. every time I came home for holidays. The questions got sharper. How much are you making? When are you going to be self-sufficient? By senior year, I'd built a small portfolio and landed a couple of clients for branding packages. It wasn't millions. It was enough to pay rent and eat, but it wasn't their paths. The night they disowned me was 3 weeks after graduation. I'd come home for what I thought was a celebration dinner. I had a job lined up entry-level at a small indie design agency in the city. It paid $38,000 a year. To me, it was freedom. To them, it was failure. We were sitting at this same table, candles flickering. Mom's voice was calm at first. Eva, we've decided you're moving back home until you take the internship at the firm. We'll cover everything, car, expenses, whatever, but you drop this design nonsense. I remember my fork trembling in my hand. Mom, Dad, this is what I want. I'm good at it. I already have clients. I can make it work. Dad's face went red. Good at it? Eva, you're 22. You have no savings, no safety net, no plan. We're not bankrolling your little hobby anymore. You either take the internship or you're on your own, completely. No more tuition help, no more credit cards, no more anything. And if you walk out that door tonight choosing this, you're dead to us. The silence after that was worse than any shouting. I looked at Alex. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. Mom just stared at her plate like I was already gone. I stood up, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Fine, I whispered. I guess I'm dead to you then. I packed one suitcase that night, slept on a friend's couch for 2 weeks until I found the studio apartment in Wicker Park, tiny, moldy, with a window that wouldn't close all the way. I worked 60-hour weeks at the agency, then came home and hustled freelance until 2 a.m. Ramen, peanut butter sandwiches. Electricity shut off twice because I chose to pay the internet bill so I could keep taking client calls. I cried in the shower more nights than I can count. Every holiday I'd get a text from Mom, cold, formal. We hope you're making better choices. Alex sent nothing. Dad blocked my number after I tried calling once just to hear his voice. I was broke, truly, stomach-clenching broke, but I never stopped believing. I poured every spare dollar into my side project, a digital platform I'd been building in secret since junior year. It was called Thread and Echo, an app that connected independent artists with brands for custom collaborations using AI to match aesthetics perfectly. It started as a passion project on my old laptop. I coded the backend myself with free tutorials at 3 a.m. while my roommates partied. I poured my soul into it because it was mine. No one could take it away. The first year after disownment was hell. I launched Thread and Echo quietly in January of my 23rd year, got 3 users, then 10, then somehow a viral TikTok from a Chicago street artist who landed a Nike campaign through the app. Overnight, downloads spiked. Brands started reaching out. I reinvested every cent, server costs, marketing, legal fees to protect my idea. I lived on $30 a week for groceries. I walked everywhere because gas was too expensive. But the numbers started climbing, slowly at first, then faster. By the time I turned 24, the app had 80,000 users. Revenue from premium features and brand partnerships hit 6 figures. I still didn't tell anyone, not my family, not even my closest friends. I was terrified they'd try to take it or worse, act like they'd always believed in me. I kept the same beat-up Honda, the same tiny apartment, the same secondhand clothes. I opened a high-yield savings account and watched it grow. I made a few smart investments, nothing crazy, just index funds and a small crypto play that paid off bigger than I expected. Every month I'd stare at that balance and feel this quiet fire in my chest. They thought I was nothing. they were wrong. Last year was when it exploded. A major fashion conglomerate bought a stake in Thread and Echo. The deal closed in secret. Suddenly, I had a board seat, equity, and a bank account that no longer looked like a joke. I paid off my student loans in one click. I bought my first real piece of art for my apartment, a massive abstract painting that made me cry when I hung it. I still drove the same car. I still answered my own emails. But inside, I was free. I was whole. I was everything they said I could never be. I hadn't spoken to them in almost 18 months when the invitation came. Mom's text out of nowhere, Grandma's 75th birthday dinner, she wants the whole family, even you, 7 p.m. Saturday, don't embarrass us. I almost deleted it, but something in me, some bruised, stubborn part said yes. Maybe I wanted them to see me happy, maybe I wanted closure, maybe I just wanted to prove I could sit at that table without breaking. So here I was, back at the mahogany table, and now my phone was in Dad's hand, the balance glowing like a neon sign screaming every truth I'd hidden. Mom's voice cracked first. Eva, this is yours, all of it? Her eyes were wide, mascara already smudging at the corners. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable, it almost hurt to see. Alex was shaking his head. No way, you're telling me you built this while we thought you were failing, you lied to us. I didn't lie, I said quietly. My voice was steady now, even though my hands were still shaking under the table. You just never asked the right questions, you never cared enough to look. You wrote me off the second I didn't fit your plan. You disowned me for being broke, but you never once asked how I was surviving. You never once said I love you without a price tag attached. Dad slammed the phone down on the table so hard the wine glasses jumped. His face was purple. This doesn't change what you did. You humiliated this family. You chose this fantasy over everything we gave you. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. Everything you gave me, you mean the conditional love, the threats, the way you changed the locks and told Aunt Linda I was a drug addict just so no one would feel sorry for me? Yeah, I remember all of it. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Silence moment. Just the ticking clock and the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Mom reached for my hand across the table, but I pulled back. Her fingers hovered in the air like she didn't know what to do with them anymore. Eva, please, she whispered. We can fix this. We're family. Tell us how you did it. We'll help you manage it, invest it properly. Alex can look over the contracts. I laughed again, sharper this time. Help me? You want to help me now after you told me I was dead to you? After you missed my 24th birthday because you were too ashamed to admit I existed? No, this money, it's mine. Every cent came from nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. It came from believing in myself when no one else did. Alex stood up so fast his chair scraped backward. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Rubbing our faces in it. Typical Eva. Always the victim until you can play the hero. I looked at him, really looked, the brother who used to sneak me ice cream when I was grounded, the one who now looked at me like I was a threat. I'm not enjoying it, I said softly. I'm surviving it, the same way I survived everything you put me through. Dad's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the vein in his temple pulsing. Get out of my house. The words hit like they did 3 years ago, but this time they didn't land the same way. This time I had proof in black and white, literally glowing on the phone still lying on the table. This time I wasn't the broke girl walking out with one suitcase. This time I was the one with the power. I stood slowly, picking up my coat. My legs felt stronger than they had in years. You know what's funny? I said, my voice low but clear. I came here tonight hopping for, I don't even know, an apology, a moment where you saw me. Instead, you're doing the exact same thing, throwing me out again. Only this time I don't need you, I never did. Mom was crying now, quiet, ugly sobs that made her shoulders shake. Eva, wait please, we love you, we always have. I paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame. The chandelier light caught the tears on her cheeks, and for a second I felt that old pull, the little girl who just wanted her mom to be proud. But the pull wasn't strong enough anymore, not after everything. Love, I whispered, love doesn't have conditions, love doesn't change the locks, you taught me that. I turned and walked down the hallway toward the front door. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor I used to slide across in socks as a kid. Behind me I could hear chairs scraping, voices rising, Dad shouting something about lawyers, Alex calling my name like he still had the right to. My hand was on the doorknob when I heard Mom's broken voice carry down the hall. Eva, your phone, your money. I didn't turn around, I just smiled to myself, small and private and full of 3 years of quiet strength. The door clicked open and cold night air rushed in, smelling like fallen leaves and freedom. But as I stepped onto the porch, my heart still racing, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot, because the real question was what happened when my bank statement leaked. It was what I was going to do now that they finally knew the truth. And I had plans, big ones. I stepped out into the crisp Chicago night, the front door clicking shut behind me like the final period on a chapter I'd waited years to close. The porch light cast long shadows across the driveway, and for a moment I just stood there, breathing in the cold air that smelled of wet leaves and distant rain. My old Honda waited under the street lamp, dented bumper, faded paint, the same car I'd driven away in 3 years ago with $20 in my bank account and tears streaming down my face. It felt poetic now. I climbed in, turned the key, and let the engine rumble to life. In the rearview mirror, I could see the silhouette of my mother at the front window, her hand pressed against the glass like she was reaching for something she'd already lost. My phone was still inside. I'd left it on the table like a bomb I no longer needed to carry. Let them stare at those numbers until they burned into their retinas. Let them argue over how their broke daughter had quietly built an empire while they wrote her obituary. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Background music shifts, tense strings swell into a low, pulsing beat that mirrors a racing heart. I did it, I thought. I really did it. But victory didn't taste sweet yet. It tasted like salt from all the tears I'd swallowed. I drove away slowly at first, then faster, putting miles between me and that house of conditional love. My apartment in Wicker Park felt like a sanctuary when I finally pulled up, string lights still twinkling in the window, the abstract painting glowing softly under the lamp I'd left on. I collapsed onto my couch, the one with the threadbare armrest I'd covered with a cheap throw blanket, and let the sobs come. Not sad ones. Not exactly. They were the kind that shake your whole body loose. Like releasing pressure that had been building since I was a little girl, coloring outside the lines, while my parents drew perfect straight ones for me. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I opened my laptop, the good one, the one I'd bought with my first real thread and Echo payout, and started connecting dots I'd ignored for too long. Old emails, screenshots of texts from the disownment era, bank statements from when I was scraping by, applying for food assistance while hiding it from everyone. There it was in black and white, the email from Mom 2 months after I left, CCing the whole family. We've decided it's best not to enable Eva's choices any longer. Please respect our privacy on this matter. Privacy? They'd badmouthed me at every country club brunch and holiday party. I had receipts, literal screenshots from cousins who'd forwarded me the gossip out of pity. By 3 a.m., my eyes burned, but my mind was crystal clear. The revenge wasn't going to be loud screaming matches or cutting them off coldly. No, it had to be smart, surgical, the kind that made them feel every ounce of the pain they'd inflicted but left them no one to blame but themselves. I drafted a few emails to my lawyer, quietly setting up trusts, updating my will, making sure nothing could ever touch what I'd built. Then I stared at a blank document titled Family. Maybe a letter. Maybe a video, maybe nothing at all. Detachment could be the cruelest weapon sometimes. The calls started the next morning. Unknown numbers at first, probably Dad's office line, then Mom's cell, Alex, even Grandma, bless her, though her voicemail was confused and gentle. Eva, honey, what's going on? Your mother is beside herself. I let them all go to voicemail. I listened to a few on speaker while I made coffee in my tiny kitchen. Mom's voice shaky. Eva, please call us. That money we didn't know. We thought you were struggling. We only wanted what was best. Click. I deleted it. Alex, look sis, this is crazy. Come back to the house. We can talk like adults. Dad's pissed, but he'll get over it if you explain the app thing. Maybe we can bring you into the firm's marketing department. The condescension dripped through the phone. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment, the sound echoing off the walls. Dad didn't leave a message. He texted instead, short and commanding, return to the house immediately. We need to discuss your assets and family obligations. Assets, obligations, not we love you or I'm sorry, just control wrapped in legal language. I spent the day at my favorite cafe downtown, the one with the exposed brick walls and the barista who knew my order by heart now that I could afford oat milk lattes without checking my balance first. I opened my laptop there, surrounded by the hum of real life, freelancers typing away, students laughing, people living without the shadow of a family empire hanging over them. I reviewed Thread and Echo's latest metrics. User growth was steady at 12% month over month. A new partnership with a European design house was closing next week. My team, 7 people now, all remote and passionate, had no idea about my family drama. They just knew me as Eva, the founder who showed up to every meeting with quiet confidence and never micromanaged. That afternoon, I finally replied to one text, not to them, to my best friend Lena, the graphic novelist who'd let me crash on her couch those first brutal weeks. Dinner tonight, my treat, big things happened. She replied with fire emojis and heart eyes. Real family didn't need blood, they showed up without conditions. But the pull of the past was strong. That evening, as I drove to meet Lena, my mind wandered back to the worst Christmas after the disownment. I was 23, living on expired yogurt and freelance gigs that paid late. I'd sent a simple card to the house, nothing fancy, just thinking of you, love, Eva. Mom sent it back unopened with a note in her perfect cursive. when you're ready to make better choices. I'd sat on my apartment floor that Christmas Eve, string lights from the dollar store flickering sadly, and promised myself I'd never chase their approval again. I'd built thread and echo in the weeks after that, coding through the heartbreak, turning pain into pixels and possibility. Lena hugged me tight when I arrived at the little Italian place. Over pasta and wine I actually paid for without anxiety, I told her everything, the dinner, the leaked statement, the silence that followed my exit. Her eyes widened. Eva, you legend, what are you going to do now? I twirled spaghetti on my fork, the rich tomato sauce smelling like comfort. I don't know yet, part of me wants to disappear. Change my number, move to a new city, let them wonder forever. The other part wants them to feel it, not money, the emptiness, the way I felt invisible. We talked late into the night. Lena reminded me of the nights she'd brought me soup when I was sick and broke, the way we'd brainstormed app features on napkins. That was love, unconditional. By the time I got home, my phone had 20 missed calls. I scrolled through them in bed, the glow of the screen the only light in my dark room. Camera close up, my face half in shadow, eyes reflecting the notifications, a small, determined smile forming. One voicemail from Mom stood out. She was crying harder now. Your father had a rough night, chest pains, the doctor said stress. Eva, please, we're your family. Come home tomorrow, we can start over. I'll make your favorite lasagna. We'll listen this time, just don't shut us out. Chest pains, the guilt hit like a wave, but I pushed it back. How many nights had I had panic attacks wondering if I'd end up on the street? How many times had I called their old number just to hear the ring, then hung up before it connected? They'd chosen this distance. Now they could sit in it. The next few days blurred into a quiet storm of decisions. I met with my financial advisor, a sharp woman named Carla who'd helped me navigate the app sale. We set up anonymous donations to art programs for underprivileged kids, the kind of thing my parents would never understand. I updated my passwords, consolidated accounts, and even looked at real estate listings for a small house up north with a studio space. Something mine, untouchable. But the family wasn't done. On day 4, Alex showed up at my apartment building unannounced. I saw him through the lobby camera, expensive coat, slicked hair, looking out of place among the artists and baristas. I buzzed him up, heart pounding, but kept the door chain on when he knocked. Eva, he said, voice muffled through the wood. Open up, this is ridiculous. Dad's talking about contesting things, lawyers, we just want to talk. I opened the door a crack. His eyes scanned my apartment behind me, the painting, the tidy desk with dual monitors, the fresh flowers I'd bought myself. Contesting what, Alex? My own success? Go ahead, everything, documented, ironclad, unlike the family you all threw away. He shifted uncomfortably. We were wrong, okay? Mom's a mess. She hasn't slept. You dropped a bomb on us. 2.5 million, how? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Hard work, late nights, believing in myself when you called me a loser. Remember that Thanksgiving when you toasted to real Thompsons and everyone laughed while I sat there like a ghost? I remember. He looked down at his shoes, shiny loafers that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. Come to dinner again, Saturday, neutral ground, no fighting, just explain, let us be part of this. Part of this, the words made my stomach turn. They didn't want me, they wanted the numbers on that screen, the status, the validation that their bloodline hadn't failed. I closed the door slowly. I'll think about it. That night I couldn't sleep again. I pulled out old journals from a box under my bed, pages filled with angry sketches and tear-stained entries from the broke years. One entry stopped me cold. If I ever make it, I won't let them back in easily. They have to earn it, but will I even want them to? I traced the words with my finger. The girl who wrote that had been so broken. The woman reading it now felt armored, but the cracks were still there. Saturday came faster than I expected. I agreed to the dinner not at the house, but at an upscale restaurant downtown that Mom suggested. Neutral ground, like Alex said. I dressed carefully, the gray cashmere sweater they'd mocked, paired with tailored black pants and simple jewelry I'd bought after the first big payout. No flash, just quiet confidence. Background music, subtle orchestral build, strings and piano dancing on the edge of hope and tension. They were already there when I arrived, seated at a round table by the window overlooking the river. Mom's eyes were puffy, but she'd powdered over it. Dad sat rigid, menu untouched. Alex and even Grandma, who gave me a weak smile. The waiter poured water and the clink of ice felt deafening. Eva, Mom started, voice soft. Thank you for coming, we've talked a lot this week. We were harsh, we see that now. Dad cleared his throat. The app, impressive, we'd like details, perhaps integrate it with the firm's clients, family business. There it was, the pivot to utility. I sipped my water, letting the silence stretch. Family business, I thought I wasn't family anymore. Grandma reached for my hand. Child blood is blood, your mother told me everything. We're proud, late but proud. Proud, the word should have warmed me. Instead, it felt hollow. I pulled out printed pages from my bag, screenshots, timelines, bank records from the lean years, not the big balance, the small ones, the rejection emails, the forwarded gossip. This is what your pride looked like to me, I said, sliding them across the table. Read them, really read them, then tell me again how we start over. Mom's hands trembled as she picked one up, tears welled fresh. Alex scanned his quickly, face flushing. Dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt for once. As they read, I felt the power shift fully into my hands. This was the investigation phase of my own heart, laying out the evidence, watching them confront the mirror I'd polished with every lonely night. Revenge wasn't destruction, it was illumination, but the real consequences, they were just beginning to unfold. Because as Mom looked up at me with genuine regret in her eyes for the first time, I realized I had a choice: forgive and rebuild, or walk away and let the silence do the rest. My phone buzzed in my purse, a notification from Thread and Echo. Another milestone hit, the future was calling, but the past was sitting right here waiting for my verdict. I took a deep breath, the river lights dancing outside the window like stars I'd finally reached on my own. Whatever happened next, I wasn't the broke girl at this table anymore. I was Eva Thompson, creator of her own destiny, and they were about to learn exactly what that meant. The waiter refilled our water glasses with a polite smile, completely unaware that the table was cracking open like an old wound. I watched my family's faces as they flipped through the printed pages I'd brought, timestamps, forwarded emails, even a blurry photo of me at 23, sleeping on Lena's couch with my laptop open on my chest because the Wi-Fi was the only thing keeping my freelance gigs alive. Mom's hands shook so badly the paper rattled. Dad's eyes narrowed into slits, but for the first time I saw something flicker behind the anger: doubt. These are private, Alex muttered, his voice tight. He slid one page back toward me like it burned him. You saved all this, like some kind of evidence file. I leaned back in my chair, the soft leather creaking under me. The restaurant hummed around us, clinking silverware, low laughter from other tables, the gentle lap of the river against the glass, but at our table it was tomb quiet, silence moment, just the sound of my own steady breathing and the faint clink of ice in Dad's untouched scotch. Evidence? I said softly. No, Alex, memories, proof that I didn't imagine the way you all erased me. You changed the locks, remember? Mom, you wrote on the back of my Christmas card that I was choosing poverty. Dad, you told your golf buddies I was off the rails. I was 22, scared, and you made sure the world knew I was the family failure. Mom pressed a napkin to her eyes, mascara bleeding into the white linen. We were trying to help you, Eva. Tough love, you were throwing away your future. Tough love, my voice cracked, but I didn't stop. The words had been bottled up too long. Tough love doesn't look like blocking my number after I called you from the ER with pneumonia because I couldn't afford antibiotics. Tough love doesn't look like telling grandma I was on drugs so she'd stop sending me birthday money. I ate rice and beans for 6 months straight. I sold my laptop once for rent and coded the early version of Thread and Echo on a library computer. Every single night I wondered if I was crazy for believing in myself when my own blood called me worthless. Grandma reached for my arm again, her frail fingers surprisingly strong. Sweetheart, I didn't know. They never told me the whole story. I thought you'd had a fight and needed space. I squeezed her hand back, the only warm touch at the table. I know, Grandma, you were the only one who ever asked how I was doing without an agenda. Dad slammed his palm on the table hard enough that the waiter glanced over nervously from across the room. Enough with the sob story. You have millions now, millions. From some app we never even heard about. You hid it from us, lied by omission. That money belongs in the family trust. We built this name, you owe us. There it was, the real face behind the tears, not love, ownership. I felt a cold laugh bubble up from somewhere deep in my chest. Owe you? I owe you nothing. This money came from me staying up until sunrise debugging code while my stomach growled. From pitching to brands who believed in my vision when my own father told investors I was unreliable. From reinvesting every dime instead of buying the things you all took for granted: new cars, vacations, the respect of this table. Alex leaned in, voice low and urgent. Eva, be reasonable. We can protect you. Taxes, investments, lawsuits from copycats. The firm has resources. Let us manage it. We'll even give you a seat on the board. Make it official. I stared at him, the brother who used to carry me on his shoulders when I was 5, now bargaining like I was a business deal. Manage it like you managed my life? No thanks, I already have lawyers, advisors, people who saw my worth before the balance hit 7 figures, people who didn't disown me when the account was empty. Mom's breakdown came then, raw and ugly. She covered her face with both hands, shoulders heaving. I'm sorry, God, Eva, I'm so sorry. I lay awake every night wondering if you were okay, but your father said we had to be strong, that you'd come crawling back and thank us. I believed him. I was weak. Please let me make it right. Come home, stay in your old room, we'll throw you a party, tell everyone how proud we are. The words hung there, tempting and poisonous. For a split second, I saw the little girl version of me lighting up at the idea of mom's approval. But that girl had grown up in the cold. I shook my head slowly. A party so you can parade the success story around and pretend the last 3 years never happened? No, I don't need your pride anymore. I built my own. Dad's face was turning that dangerous red again. You're being vindictive, ungrateful. After everything we sacrificed for you, private schools, tutors, opportunities most kids would kill for. Sacrificed, I whispered. My inner voice was screaming now, but I kept it steady. You sacrificed nothing. You invested in the version of me that made you look good. When I didn't fit the mold, you cut the investment. That's not sacrifice, that's business. The table fell into another heavy silence. Background music shifts, the low pulse fades into a single haunting piano note that stretches on and on. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes, how to spin this, how to regain control, how to keep the money in the family orbit. Alex pulled out his phone under the table, probably texting someone at the firm. Mom kept glancing at me like I might vanish if she blinked. I stood up slowly, smoothing my sweater, the same one they'd mocked at the first dinner. I didn't come here for apologies or deals, I came to show you the receipts. Literally, every late-night panic attack, every time I almost quit, every moment I chose myself over your approval. Thread and Echo isn't just an app, it's proof that I survived you and I thrived. Grandma's eyes were wet but steady. Then what now, child? You walk away forever. I paused, coat in hand. The river outside glittered under the city lights, endless and free. I don't know yet, maybe some doors stay open, maybe they don't, but they open on my terms, no more conditions, no more scorekeeping. If you want to be in my life, you start from zero, like I did. I left them there, the evidence pages scattered like confetti from a party no one wanted to attend. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I walked out, head high, heart pounding with a mix of terror and triumph I'd never felt before. Outside, the night air hit my face like a fresh start. I didn't look back. In the car, I finally checked my phone, dozens of new messages. Some from numbers I didn't recognize, probably extended family who'd heard whispers. One from Lena, how'd it go, Queen? Need ice cream and venting? I smiled for the first time all evening. But as I pulled away from the curb, another text came through, this one from an unknown number. The preview made my blood run cold. We know about the inheritance clause, your grandmother's will, the one she changed last year. Call us. We need to talk before things get messy. Inheritance clause, Grandma had mentioned nothing. I glanced in the rearview mirror as if the restaurant might still be watching me. My hands tightened on the wheel. The revenge I thought I controlled was suddenly shifting under my feet. What else had they hidden? What else had I missed while I was busy surviving? I drove toward my apartment, the city lights blurring past, but my mind was already racing ahead. Tomorrow I'd dig deeper. Tomorrow I'd uncover every secret they'd buried with my name on it, because this story wasn't just about a leaked bank statement anymore. It was about the lies that came before it, and the ones still waiting to explode. The city lights streaked past my windshield like accusations I couldn't outrun. My phone sat in the cup holder, that single text glowing on the lock screen like a lit fuse. We know about the inheritance clause, your grandmother's will, the one she changed last year. Call us. We need to talk before things get messy. Unknown number, blocked caller ID. But I knew the voice behind it, Dad's firm, probably, or one of his golf buddies who doubled as a private investigator. My stomach twisted into knots tighter than the ones I used to feel when the power bill came due. I pulled over into a quiet side street near the river, engine idling, breath fogging the glass. Background music shifts, the single piano note fractures into urgent, discordant strings that claw at the edges of control. Inheritance clause, Grandma had always been the soft one, the one who slipped me $20 bills and birthday cards even after the family cut me off. But a changed will, last year, while I was scraping by on freelance gigs and praying my app wouldn't crash. My hands shook as I opened the message thread again, no follow-up, just that one bomb. I dialed Grandma's number before I could talk myself out of it. It rang 4 times, then her frail voice answered, warm but confused. Eva, sweetheart, is everything okay? It's late. Grandma, I said, voice cracking like thin ice. Did you change your will last year? Something about an inheritance clause? Dad's people just texted me. They're threatening me. Silence on her end, then a long sigh that carried the weight of 80 years. Oh, honey, I should have told you myself. Come by the house tomorrow morning. Alone, your father and mother don't need to know yet. There are things I kept from them too. She hung up before I could press her. I sat there in the dark car, heart hammering against my ribs, the river's gentle lap against the shore, the only sound besides my ragged breathing. Camera close-up feeling, my reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes wide, lips pressed thin, the girl who thought she'd won, staring back like she'd only just begun the war. I thought the leaked bank statement was the twist. I was wrong. The real twist had been hiding in plain sight, wrapped in the same family blood that had disowned me. I barely slept that night. Instead, I paced my apartment, pulling out every document I owned, old tax returns, emails from the disownment period, even the faded birthday cards from Grandma with their careful handwriting. One from last Christmas caught my eye. My brave girl, keep building your dreams. The future is brighter than they know. Love always, G, brighter than they know. Had she known about Thread and Echo? Had she been watching from the sidelines while my parents painted me as the black sheep? Morning came gray and heavy. I drove to Grandma's assisted living condo on the north side, quiet, elegant, with the garden she loved tending even when her hands shook from arthritis. She met me at the door in her favorite blue cardigan, a thick envelope in her lap. We sat in her sunroom overlooking the courtyard, the smell of fresh coffee and lavender soap wrapping around me like the hugs I'd missed for years. Eva, she started, voice steady but eyes tired. I changed my will 14 months ago, after your mother told me you'd been hospitalized with pneumonia and still refused to come home and behave. I was furious. I'd always planned to split everything equally, your father, Alex, you, and a few charities, but I added a clause, a big one. She slid the envelope across the glass table. My fingers trembled as I opened it, legal papers, dense paragraphs. And there, highlighted in yellow, a clause stating that if any family member attempted to contest or interfere with my share, the entire inheritance would redirect to a scholarship fund for young women in creative fields. My share, $2.8 million, set aside in a trust that matured on my 27th birthday 3 months from now. Grandma had been funneling quiet investments into it for years, watching my app grow from afar through public records and a private investigator she'd hired just to make sure my granddaughter was safe. I saw the potential in you, she whispered, reaching for my hand. Even when your parents only saw defiance, I watched Thread and Echo take off. I was so proud I cried in my chair the day it hit 100,000 users. But I knew if I told them they'd try to take it, so I hid it like you hid your success. Tears burned my eyes, real ones, not the angry kind I'd cried alone in my studio apartment. These were the kind that came when someone finally saw you. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was so alone, Grandma. I thought everyone had given up on me. She squeezed my fingers, her skin paper-thin but warm. Because I was a coward too, scared of losing the little access I had left to you. Your father threatened to keep me from seeing you at all if I meddled. But I couldn't let them win, not completely. The truth landed like a second leaked bank statement, this one from the past I thought I understood. My family hadn't just disowned me, they tried to bury me, and Grandma had been fighting a quiet war on my behalf the whole time. I left her condo with the papers tucked in my bag and a promise to return for tea next week. But the second I stepped into the parking lot, my phone exploded. Dad, Mom, Alex, group text this time. We know about Grandma's clause, family meeting tonight, our house, no excuses, this affects all of us. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, heartbeat sound rising, steady and loud, drowning out the traffic. They knew, of course they knew, they'd probably had their lawyers crawling all over it the second my bank balance appeared at dinner. Now the revenge I'd been crafting, quiet detachment, building my own life on my terms, felt too small, too slow. They wanted to drag me back into their arena. Fine, I'd meet them there, but this time I'd bring the whole truth. I spent the afternoon at my lawyer's office downtown. Carla, the same sharp woman who'd closed the Thread and Echo deal, read the will clause twice and whistled low. This is ironclad, Eva. Your grandmother protected you better than most parents protect their kids. If they contest anything, try to pressure you, sue, even badmouth you publicly, the money goes to the scholarship fund. They lose everything they think they're entitled to. I nodded, a plan forming in the back of my mind like code compiling line by line. Smart revenge, public but clean, emotional but undeniable. I drafted a simple letter on her letterhead addressed to the whole family, no accusations, just facts, my struggles, my success, Grandma's quiet support, and one line at the end: I will not be managed, contested, or claimed. The choice is yours, accept me as I am or lose the chance forever. I didn't send it yet. Tonight's meeting would be the test. The drive back to the old mahogany table house felt different this time. No fear in my chest, just a quiet fire. I parked in the same spot I'd left weeks ago, the dented Honda looking almost defiant next to Dad's sleek Mercedes. Inside, the tension was thicker than Mom's gravy. They were all waiting, Dad at the head of the table, Mom beside him with red-rimmed eyes, Alex scrolling his phone like this was a board meeting, Grandma in the guest chair looking small but resolute. Dad didn't waste time. The clause is unacceptable, we're family, we'll contest it, you'll sign over management of your assets to the firm. In return, we'll welcome you back publicly. Announce the app as a family-supported venture, everyone wins. I laughed, a real laugh this time, light and free. Wins? You still don't get it, I already won. 3 years ago when I walked out that door with nothing but belief in myself. Grandma didn't change her will to punish you. She changed it to protect the one person in this family who learned how to stand alone. Mom reached for me across the table, voice breaking. Eva, please, we're begging your father's health, the stress is killing him. Alex has deals riding on the family name, don't destroy us over pride. Pride? I pulled the letter from my bag and laid it flat on the mahogany. This isn't pride, this is the truth you never wanted to hear. Read it or don't. But if you fight me, if you try to take what Grandma gave me freely, the money vanishes. And so does any chance of me ever sitting at this table again. The silence that followed was the loudest yet. Silence moment. Heartbeat fading into the distant tick of the grandfather clock, counting down the seconds of their old power. Alex's face went pale as he scanned the letter. Dad's hands clenched into fists. Mom just stared at me like she was seeing her daughter for the first time. Grandma spoke last, voice soft but steel underneath. I stand by every word I wrote. Eva earned this. Let her go or lose her forever. I stood up, coat already on. The letter stayed on the table like a gauntlet thrown. As I walked toward the door for what felt like the 100th time, Dad's voice followed me down the hall, hoarse, broken, almost human. Eva, wait. I paused at the threshold, night air cool on my face. Part of me wanted to turn around, the little girl who still craved her father's pride, but the woman I'd become, the one who'd built empires in the dark, knew better. This wasn't the end of the revenge, it was only the beginning. Because tomorrow I'd send copies of that letter to every cousin, every country club friend, every person who'd ever heard I was the broke failure. Not to shame them, to free myself, and to watch whether my family would finally choose love over legacy. My hand tightened on the doorknob. Whatever they decided next would decide everything. I paused at the threshold, the cool night air brushing my face like a reminder that the world outside this house still belonged to me. Dad's voice cracked again behind me, Eva, wait, but I didn't turn around right away. My fingers stayed wrapped around the brass doorknob, cool and solid, grounding me. For 3 long years I had dreamed of this moment, the one where they finally saw me and begged. Now that it was here, it felt heavier than I expected. Not triumphant, not yet, just raw. I turned slowly. Dad was standing at the end of the hallway, his broad shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen. The man who used to command courtrooms and boardrooms looked smaller under the chandelier light, shadows carving deep lines into his face. Mom hovered behind him, one hand pressed to her chest like she might collapse. Alex leaned against the wall, arms crossed, but his usual smirk was gone, replaced by something closer to fear. Grandma sat at the table still, quiet and watchful, the letter I'd left behind resting under her wrinkled fingers like a shield. I waited, I said, my voice low but steady. I waited 3 years for you to say my name without conditions attached. Now you want me to wait longer for what? Another lecture on family duty. Dad took a shaky step forward. This isn't about duty, it's about blood. Your grandmother's claws, it's tearing us apart. We're losing everything we built if this goes public. The firm's reputation, our clients, they can't see us fractured like this. I laughed softly, the sound echoing off the marble floor. You're worried about reputation? After you told everyone I was a failure? After you let your friends pity you for having a troubled daughter while I was eating peanut butter sandwiches in a freezing apartment? The only thing tearing this family apart is the truth finally coming out. Mom moved then, rushing forward until she stood just feet away. Her eyes were swollen, mascara tracks drying on her cheeks. Up close I could smell her expensive perfume, the same one she wore to every charity gala, the scent that used to make me feel safe as a child. Now it just reminded me of all the nights I'd fallen asleep wondering why that safety had a price tag. Eva, baby, please sit down just for a minute. I made coffee, your favorite hazelnut. We can talk like adults. No lawyers. No threats. I hesitated. The little girl inside me still wanted the hazelnut coffee and her mother's arms. But the woman I'd become, the one who debugged code through panic attacks and closed million-dollar deals while hiding her last name, knew better. Still, I followed her back to the table, not because I owed them anything, but because I needed to see this through, every hidden layer, every lie. We sat, the mahogany felt colder now. Grandma slid the letter back toward me, her eyes meeting mine with quiet strength. Tell them everything, sweetheart, they need to hear it from you. So I did. I started from the beginning again, but deeper this time. The night I left with one suitcase, rain soaking through my coat as I waited for an Uber I could barely afford. The first month when my phone got shut off and I walked 2 miles to the library every day to send client emails. The day Thread and Echo hit its first 1,000 users and I celebrated alone with a single cupcake from the gas station because champagne was too expensive. I told them about the investor who'd almost backed out when he learned my last name, Thompson, any relation to Richard, can't have family drama in the cap table. I lied and said no, I'd protected them even then. Alex interrupted once, voice tight. You could have come to us, we would have helped quietly. Quietly, I shot back. Like the way you quietly forwarded my old college transcripts to your buddies with the caption proof that not all Thompsons are winners. I saw that email, Alex. 3 months after you all disowned me. I almost quit the app that night. His face drained of color, Mom gasped. Dad stared at the table like it had personally betrayed him. I kept going, the words poured out, sensory memories I'd buried, the smell of mold in my first apartment, the sound of my neighbors' fights bleeding through thin walls while I coded at 4 a.m., the taste of cheap instant noodles that made my stomach ache for days, the way my hands used to shake every time I checked my bank balance and saw $47.82 staring back. And then the shift, the first big brand deal that paid enough for real groceries. The night I transferred my first six-figure sum into savings and cried so hard I couldn't see the screen. The quiet pride when I paid off my student loans in full without telling a soul. By the time I finished, the grandfather clock had ticked past midnight. Mom was openly sobbing. Alex looked like he might be sick. Dad's hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. I built it alone, I whispered. Not because I wanted to hurt you, because you left me no choice. And now you want a piece of it, you want to manage the thing that saved me when you tried to break me. Grandma cleared her throat. The clause stands, I won't change it. Eva deserves security, real security, not the conditional kind you offered. Dad finally spoke, voice hoarse. Then we'll fight it in court. We have grounds, undue influence. You weren't in your right mind when you changed the will. The threat landed like a slap. I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone, the new one I'd bought after leaving the first at dinner, and opened an email draft I'd prepared with Carla. Go ahead, contest it, but every document, every email, every recorded conversation from the last 3 years goes public. I have everything, screenshots, voicemails, even the hospital bill I paid myself while you were vacationing in Aspen. Your clients will know exactly how you treat your own daughter, your firm's precious reputation, gone. Silence again, thick, suffocating. The air felt heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. My heartbeat was the only sound I could hear, steady now, stronger. Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand this time. I let her skin was cold. I failed you. As a mother, I chose your father's approval over your heart. Every night I prayed you'd come back broken so I could fix you, but you came back stronger, and it terrifies me because it means we were wrong about everything. Tears slipped down my own cheeks then, not for them, for the girl I used to be, for all the versions of me they never got to meet. I squeezed her hand once, then gently pulled away. I'm not here to destroy you, I'm here to stop letting you destroy me. The choice is yours, except that I'm not coming back under your rules or lose the chance to ever know the woman I became. Alex stood abruptly. This is blackmail. No, I said calmly, this is boundaries, something this family never learned. I left the house again that night, but slower, no dramatic slam, just quiet footsteps down the driveway. In my car, I sat for a long time, engine off, staring at the lit windows of the only home I'd ever known. Lights flicked off one by one, first Alex's old room, then Mom and Dad. Grandma's guest room stayed on longer. I wondered if she was watching me leave, proud. The next weeks blurred into a careful dance of power and pain. I threw myself into Thread and Echo, new features, team meetings, a quiet expansion into Europe. I met Lena almost every evening, her laughter healing parts of me I didn't know were still bruised. We talked about everything except my family until one night she asked, "Are you really going to cut them off forever?" I swirled the wine in my glass, watching the deep red catch the candlelight. I don't know, part of me wants to. The other part still hopes they'll choose me without the money attached. That hope got tested sooner than I expected. 2 weeks after the big dinner, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. She stood in the hallway holding a Tupperware of homemade lasagna, the same recipe from my childhood, the one with extra ricotta because I used to beg for it. Her hair was messy, no pearls, no perfect makeup, just a mother who looked like she hadn't slept. I'm not here for the will, she said quickly when I opened the door. I'm here because I miss my daughter, the real one, not the success story, not the disappointment, you. I let her in. We sat on my couch, the threadbare one I still hadn't replaced because it reminded me where I came from. She told me stories I'd never heard, how she'd cried in the car after changing the locks, how Dad had panic attacks but refused therapy, how Alex had started drinking more after I left, quietly ashamed. She admitted she'd checked my social media in secret, screenshotting every small win and saving them in a hidden folder on her phone. I was scared, she whispered. Scared that if I chose you, your father would leave me. Scared that loving you meant admitting I failed as a parent. But I'm choosing now, even if it costs me everything else. We cried together that night, real, ugly, healing tears. She slept on my couch. In the morning, I made her coffee, hazelnut, and we talked about Thread and Echo for hours. She asked real questions, no judgment. For the first time in years, I felt seen by her. But Dad and Alex weren't ready. They doubled down. Lawyers' letters arrived, subtle threats through mutual friends. Grandma held firm, but the stress landed her in the hospital for 2 days with high blood pressure. I visited every afternoon, bringing flowers and sitting by her bed while monitors beeped softly. She held my hand and said, "Don't let them win by making you bitter, Eva. Revenge tastes sweetest when it's peace on your terms." Those words stuck with me. I started crafting something bigger than exposure. I decided to host a small launch event for Thread and Echo's new creative scholarship program, funded partly by me, partly by Grandma's redirected intentions if needed. I invited select press, artists, and yes, my family, publicly on my terms. The night of the event was electric. A converted warehouse in the arts district, string lights everywhere, local musicians playing soft indie tracks. My team buzzed with pride. Lena hugged me so tight I laughed. When my family arrived, mom first, then grandma in a wheelchair, dad and Alex trailing like reluctant shadows, the room seemed to hold its breath. I took the small stage after the welcome speeches, microphone in hand, heart steady. 3 years ago, I was disowned for following my dreams. Tonight, we celebrate those dreams, not just mine, but every artist who refuses to shrink. This scholarship fund will help young creatives who feel alone, who feel broke, who feel unseen by the people who should love them most. I looked straight at my family as I said it. Mom was crying again but smiling. Dad's face was stone but his eyes glistened. Alex looked at the floor. Grandma beamed. Afterward, Dad approached me near the dessert table. The crowd milled around us, champagne flowing, laughter rising. "You did this without us," he said quietly. "I'm proud, late but proud. I was wrong, terribly wrong." It wasn't perfect. There were still lawyers to deal with, still wounds that needed years to scar over. But in that moment, surrounded by the life I'd built, I felt the revenge complete itself, not in destruction, but in quiet victory. I hugged him, brief, awkward, real. "I'm not coming back to the firm," I told him, "but I'm not closing the door completely. Show me you've changed, not with money, with time, with listening." He nodded. For the first time, it felt like he meant it. The evening stretched late. I danced with Lena. I introduced Mom to my team. Alex even cracked a genuine joke about my old ramen diet. Grandma whispered in my ear before leaving, "You won, sweetheart, not the money, you won yourself back." Driving home that night, windows down, city wind in my hair, I felt lighter than I had in years. The bank statement that started it all was just a number. The real wealth was this: boundaries kept, truth spoken, love earned instead of demanded. My family wasn't fixed, but I was, and that was the greatest revenge of all. Yet as I pulled into my apartment parking spot, another unknown text lit up my phone. "Congratulations on the event, but we still need to talk about the full trust details. There's more you don't know, call tomorrow." My stomach dropped again. The story wasn't over. There were deeper secrets buried in Grandma's papers, in Dad's firm files, in the years of silence. Secrets that could change everything I thought I'd won. I stared at the text until the screen went dark. Whatever came next, I was ready, stronger, whole. The broke girl was gone. The woman who replaced her had millions, boundaries, and a heart that finally knew its worth. But the next layer of truth was waiting, and it would test every piece of healing I'd just begun. I stared at the glowing text until the screen went black, my thumb hovering over the reply button before I slipped the phone into my pocket instead. The warehouse event lights were still fading behind me in the rearview mirror as I drove home, the city humming past like nothing had changed, but everything had. My chest felt full, full of lasagna-scented reconciliation with Mom, full of Dad's cracked proud, full of Grandma's quiet pride. Yet this new message clawed at the edges of that warmth like frost on spring glass. More I didn't know. Of course there was more. With my family, the layers never ended. They just got buried deeper under money, pride, and decades of pretending we were perfect. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat cross-legged on my couch in the dark, laptop open, digging through every email, every old PDF from Carla, every scanned document Grandma had given me. The inheritance clause was clear on paper, but the footnotes mentioned side trusts, offshore accounts from Grandpa's era, and something called the contingency portfolio tied to Thompson family holdings. By 4 a.m., my eyes burned and my mind spun with half-formed theories. Had Dad hidden assets from Grandma? Had they tried to siphon money meant for me into the firm? I brewed another pot of coffee, strong, black, the kind that tasted like survival, and kept reading until the sun painted my tiny apartment gold. Morning brought action. I called Carla first thing. Her voice was sharp and ready, the way I needed it. "Eva, I've been waiting for this call. Send me the new text. I'll have my investigator pull public filings and cross-reference with your grandmother's trust docs. Give me 48 hours. I spent those hours in a controlled frenzy, meeting my Thread and Echo team via video, approving new designs, laughing with Lena over lunch like my world wasn't tilting again. But every spare second I spent remembering. I remembered the summer I was 16 when Dad took Alex on a father-son bonding trip to New York for Yankees games and steak dinners while I stayed home because art camp was enough excitement. Mom had justified it with a new sketchbook and a vague "girls need different things." I'd cried into that sketchbook every night, drawing futures where I was enough. Those drawings became the first wireframes for Thread and Echo years later. Pain had purpose. I clung to that now. 48 hours later, Carla's email hit like another leaked statement. Attached, spreadsheets, court-adjacent filings, and a bombshell memo. Grandpa's original estate had been far larger than anyone admitted, nearly 12 million liquid plus properties. When he passed, Dad had quietly redirected chunks into business development for the firm, claiming it was family strategy. Grandma's changes last year weren't just protective, they were corrective. She clawed back what she could into my trust, but Dad had contested quietly through back channels. The new message, likely from one of his associates trying to scare me into signing away claims before the full audit hit. I printed everything, thick stack, then I drove to Grandma's condo again. She looked frailer under the afternoon light, but her eyes sharpened when she saw the papers. I suspected, she admitted, voice low. Your grandfather never trusted Richard with everything. He made me promise to watch. I did my best, but I was grieving. I let too much slip. That contingency portfolio, it was meant for you and any grandchildren who showed creativity. Your father buried it because he saw it as waste on frivolous dreams. We talked for hours. She told me stories of her own youth, running away from an arranged marriage in the 60s, building a small real estate side hustle that Mom later expanded. Women in this family have always had to fight sideways, she said, squeezing my hand. You fought straight on. I'm so damn proud it hurts. That evening, I confronted Mom first, alone at a quiet cafe near her office. She arrived in jeans and a sweater, no pearls, no armor. I slid the printouts across the table between cappuccinos. Her face went white page by page. I didn't know the full extent, she whispered. Your father said it was paperwork, that you'd never need it because you'd come back. I believed him because believing meant I didn't have to face what we did to you. I watched her cry into her coffee, not with satisfaction but with a strange ache. I need you to choose, Mom, really choose. Help me protect what Grandma intended or keep protecting him. No middle ground. She looked up, eyes red but steady. I choose you, even if it ends my marriage. I've lost enough nights to regret. Alex was harder. He met me at a park by the lake the next day, hands in his coat pockets, breath visible in the chill. I laid it out, the redirected money, the lies, the way he'd benefited from my erasure. He didn't deny it. Instead, he sat on the bench and stared at the water for a long time. I hated you for leaving, he said finally. Because if you could make it without them, what did that say about me? I was the golden boy, supposed to be invincible. Turns out I was just compliant. We didn't hug, but he didn't fight me either. Small progress. Dad was the mountain. I went to the house alone on a Sunday afternoon when I knew he'd be in his study. The mahogany table felt like an old battlefield now. He sat behind his massive oak desk, law books lining the walls like soldiers. I placed the full file in front of him, no theatrics, just truth. You redirected Grandpa's money meant for creative legacies into the firm, I said quietly. You contested Grandma's changes behind her back. You told your partners I was unstable so no one would trust my future deals, all while calling me broke at family dinner. He didn't explode, that was new. Instead, he leaned back, eyes tired. I was protecting the family name. Thompson men build empires, not apps for artists. Grandpa built for everyone, I countered, including the granddaughter who draws. The silence stretched. I heard the grandfather clock again, ticking like it had all my life. Finally, he spoke. What do you want, Eva? Blood, the firm, my resignation. I want the contingency portfolio released to my trust. I want a public family statement acknowledging what happened, no spin. And I want you to attend my next Thread and Echo board meeting, not as boss, as someone learning. He laughed once bitter, you've become ruthless. No, I said, I've become honest. He agreed, not easily. Lawyers drafted new papers over the following week. I signed nothing without Carla in the room. Mom moved into a small apartment near mine, her choice, she said, to start fresh. Alex started texting me memes about bad coding days, awkward but real. Grandma's health stabilized, and we planted flowers in her garden together, talking about the scholarship kids who would get their shot because of us. The public statement went out via joint family email and a short post on my professional LinkedIn. It was simple. The Thompson family acknowledges past estrangement with daughter Eva and fully supports her success with Thread and Echo. We regret the pain caused and celebrate her independent achievements. Comments flooded in, some supportive, some shocked, some calling it damage control. I didn't care. The weight lifted anyway. Yet the deeper secrets kept unraveling. Carla uncovered one final piece, a letter from Grandpa written months before he died, addressed directly to me. It had been sealed in the contingency file Dad had buried. Grandma delivered it personally one rainy Tuesday. I read it alone in my apartment, rain tapping the windows like gentle applause. Grandpa's handwriting was shaky but clear. Eva girl, if you're reading this, you fought good. Don't let them dim your colors. The money was always yours to build with. Use it loud. Love, Grandpa. Tears came hot and fast. I cried for the grandfather I barely remembered, for the girl who never got his letter when she needed it most. Then I framed it and hung it above my desk, right next to the abstract painting. Months passed, Thread and Echo crossed 5 million users. I moved into a brighter apartment with big windows for natural light, still modest, still mine. Mom and I had weekly dinners. Dad attended my board meeting, stiff at first, then asking real questions about user experience. Alex joined a charity run I organized for the scholarship fund. We weren't healed, scars remained. But we were trying, one honest conversation at a time. 1 year after that original leaked bank statement dinner, I hosted Thanksgiving at my new place. Not the old mahogany table. My table, simple wood, mismatched chairs, string lights overhead. Mom brought lasagna. Dad carved the turkey with less precision and more laughter. Alex burned the rolls, but everyone teased him. Grandma sat at the head, beaming. Lena came too, family by choice. As we raised glasses, I looked around the room. A year ago, I sat at your table as the broke disappointment. Today, you sit at mine as people trying. Thank you for choosing growth over control. That's the real fortune. Dad met my eyes across the candles. You taught us, kiddo. The night ended with laughter and full bellies. No conditions, no ledger of who owed what, just people who had hurt each other and chosen to stay anyway. Yet as I closed the door after the last goodbye, my phone buzzed once more. Unknown number. Proud of the family turnaround, but the offshore accounts have one final beneficiary clause you should see. Dinner next week, we need to finish this. I smiled into the quiet apartment, Grandpa's letter watching over me. The story kept unfolding, layers upon layers, but now I wasn't afraid of them. I was ready to peel them back, one truth at a time, surrounded by the family I was slowly rebuilding on my own terms. The broke girl at dinner had become the woman who held the table together. And whatever came next, more money, more secrets, more healing, I knew I could face it. Because I finally belonged to myself first. I smiled into the quiet of my apartment, Grandpa's framed letter watching over me from the wall like a gentle guardian. The unknown number's text lingered on my screen for a moment before I set the phone down. More secrets, more clauses, more threads in the complicated tapestry of my family. But this time, the fear that used to grip me was quieter, replaced by a steady certainty. I had built myself from nothing once. I could face whatever came next without losing the ground I'd gained. The dinner they proposed was at a neutral place, a cozy Italian restaurant downtown with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and fresh basil that reminded me of better days. I arrived early, heart calm, wearing the same gray cashmere sweater from that first leak statement night. Mom was already there, waving me over with a nervous but warm smile. Grandma sat beside her, looking stronger after her health scare. Alex arrived next, carrying a small wrapped gift. Dad came last, his usual commanding presence softened by something like humility. We ordered wine and pasta. No one mentioned money at first. Instead, Mom asked about my latest Thread and Echo campaign. Alex joked about his failed attempt to design a logo for fun. Grandma told stories from her youth again, the ones that made us all laugh until tears formed. It felt normal, fragile, but real. Then Dad cleared his throat and slid an envelope across the table. The final offshore details, everything, no more hiding. The contingency portfolio is fully released to your trust. And there's this, Grandpa's second letter. We found it while sorting old files. I opened it with steady hands. Grandpa's words again, dated even earlier. If Richard fights you, remember the Thompson women always win by creating, not controlling. Build something that lasts beyond ledgers. I love you, little artist. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but they were healing ones. I looked up at my father. Thank you for giving this to me, not because of the money, but because you chose truth this time. He nodded, voice rough. I almost lost my daughter chasing control. I won't make that mistake again. The firm is restructuring. I'm stepping back some. Your mother and I were in counseling. Alex is taking on more pro bono work for creatives. We're trying, Eva, really trying. The conversation stretched long into the night. We talked about the pain, the misunderstandings, the small ways each of us had contributed to the fracture. Mom admitted her fear of being alone had kept her silent. Alex confessed his jealousy had turned to resentment. Dad spoke of the pressure from his own father to always appear strong, unbreakable. I shared more of my lonely nights, the breakthroughs, the friends who became family. No one interrupted, no one defended, we just listened. By dessert, the air felt lighter. Alex handed me the gift, a custom sketchbook with Eva's empire embossed on the cover. Inside, he'd drawn a terrible but heartfelt stick figure version of me coding at a laptop with a cape. We all laughed until our sides hurt. Grandma raised her glass. To Eva, the one who reminded us what family really means. I raised mine back, to all of us, for choosing to rebuild instead of break. That dinner marked the true turning point. Over the following months, the changes deepened. I moved into a beautiful loft with huge windows overlooking the city, light pouring in for my creative work, but nothing extravagant. Mom helped me decorate, the two of us painting walls and hanging art like we were building new memories. Dad attended every other board meeting for Thread and Echo, asking questions instead of giving orders. He even invested personally in a few young artists from the scholarship program, quietly, without seeking credit. Alex and I started a tradition, monthly sibling brunches where we roasted each other's past mistakes and celebrated small wins. He helped me negotiate a big partnership with a design software company using his legal skills for good this time. Lena became a regular at family gatherings, teasing everyone like she'd known them forever. Grandma turned 90 and we threw her the biggest party the Thompson name had ever seen, not for show, but for joy. I danced with Dad under string lights, his hand gentle on my back as he whispered, "You were always the strongest of us." Thread and Echo exploded in the best way. We hit 10 million users. I expanded the team to 20 passionate people. We launched international scholarships, funding hundreds of young creators who reminded me of my old self. One girl from a small town in Indiana sent me a message that made me cry. "Your story gave me courage to keep going when my parents called my art worthless. Thank you." I printed it and kept it in my wallet. The revenge that began with a leaked bank statement at that mahogany table had transformed completely. It wasn't about making them suffer anymore. It was about watching them grow alongside me. The pain had forged something stronger than money could buy: authentic connection. 1 year to the day after that fateful dinner, I hosted another Thanksgiving, this time at my loft. The table was long, filled with mismatched chairs to fit everyone. Mom's lasagna steamed beside Dad's perfectly carved turkey. Alex brought homemade rolls that didn't burn this time. Grandma sat at the head again, beaming. Friends, team members, even a few scholarship recipients joined. Laughter filled the space, warm and genuine. As we went around the table sharing what we were grateful for, my turn came last. I looked at each face, flawed, trying, loved. I'm grateful for the broke years that taught me my worth isn't in a balance, for the disownment that forced me to build my own table, and for all of you choosing to sit at it with me now, not because of millions, but because we finally see each other. Dad stood and raised his glass. His eyes shone. To Eva, our daughter, our teacher, the heart of this family. We clinked glasses. The sound rang clear and bright like the future opening wide. In the quiet after everyone left, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city lights. The wind was cool, carrying hints of winter. My phone buzzed one last time that night from an old family group chat that had been silent for years. Mom had added a photo of all of us at the table, smiling real smiles. Caption, "Whole again." I replied with a heart, no more words needed. The girl who once walked out with one suitcase had built an empire, mended her family, and found peace. The bank statement that leaked changed everything, but not the way anyone expected. It didn't just reveal money. It revealed truth, pain, growth, and ultimately, love without conditions. My name is Eva Thompson. I'm 27 now. I have millions in the bank, but the real fortune is the life I created and the family I chose to keep. And if you're listening to this story, remember this. Sometimes the greatest revenge is becoming so whole that the people who hurt you have no choice but to heal too. The end.